Thank you. I'm going to wait just a moment. June, can you help assist me in letting me know if we have all board members present? And I don't think June is with me, so.
I'm counting. One moment, please. Right now we have 5 board members present.
Okay. I know that the public has been waiting for the opening of this meeting. So with this, I will call the meeting to order for May 13th, 2020, the Board Policy Monitoring Workshop. I welcome everyone and apologize for the delay. We just concluded our budget hearing. For those who may not have joined that budget hearing, that meeting and presentation and public comment was all recorded, and individuals who could not join for that will be able to go to the KCPS website and access that information if you are interested in hearing what the presentation and the public comment. So with this, I want to call this meeting to order. The secretary will call the roll.
Ms. Manser?
Here.
Mr. Abarca?
Present.
Ms. Cortez?
Here.
Mr. Hogan?
Here.
Dr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Wasserstrom? Ms. Wolfsey?
Here.
Thank you. And again, thank you everyone for your patience as we begin. The first item is to approval of the agenda. It would be in order to receive a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
So moved. Public line
is now joining.
Did we get a second? I'm sorry.
Nate was the motion. I was the second.
Right.
Thank you.
This will be a roll call vote. The secretary will call the roll.
Ms. Manser?
Yes.
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Has Mr. Wasserstrom joined? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. There is a majority in favor. The agenda is approved. I will now turn this over to Superintendent Bedell for the workshop presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a couple of items under the workshop presentation today, and the first item that we want to provide to you are the Student Oratory Contest winners. We're very excited. All 4 of these students will have an opportunity to showcase their talents. I will pass this over to Dr. Daryl Davis, who will move us through this portion of the program.
Hi, good evening, Superintendent Bedell, Board Chair Manser, and members of the board. This evening, we're proud to present the 4 winners of the Black History Month Sankofa Oratory Contest. The word Sankofa comes from West Africa and refers to a mythical bird that flies forward while looking backward. And symbolically, it is to mean in order to understand our present and fully prepare for our future, we must know our past. And with that, we will turn it over to Ms. Sherelle Faust, the Director of Innovation and Post-Secondary Programming, to take us through this slide presentation and introduce our winners.
Good evening, Superintendent Bedell,
Good evening.
Master Manser, and board members. I will quickly go through a couple of slides so that we can get right to our featured students for the evening. The Sankofa Oratory Contest was marketed through district web pages and emails. All entries were submitted by the end of February. As you can see, we had a scoring committee. 4 members of our KCPS team were included there. And we'll go to the next slide. We did use a 4-category rubric in order to score students who were selected. And 4 different awards will be given to students in the 4 different categories that you see. Each student will receive a $100 gift card. And as Dr. Bedell mentioned, they are here with us this evening and very excited to present to everyone. They have been waiting for this since March when they were told that they were the winners. Of course, we know that that was postponed until now, so they are ready. Our first student for the kindergarten through 3rd grade category won first place was Lorenzo Botero, who is a 3rd grader at Hale Cook Elementary, and he will be reciting for us a poem by Langston Hughes.
I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll sit at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too sing America.
Great job, thank you.
Ah,
Great job. And now we're ready for our second student. Anthony Conway won our first place prize for the 4th through 6th grade category. He is from African Centered Prep, the lower school, and he is a 5th grader prepared to give us a speech inspired by Marcus Garvey. Anthony,
is he on mute or not?
he may be.
It's on mute.
Yep, he's probably going to town and don't even know it.
I don't see his camera either.
Oh, you don't?
No, he's in here because he was on camera before when you all were still in the budget meeting, so I'm not sure what happened now. Maybe we'll give him a couple of minutes and move on to our next student.
Right.
Joe, can you give us the next slide? Thank you. Solomon is ready. He is our winner, a 7th grader, also from African Centered Prep Lower, and he won first place for the 7th and 8th grade group. He will be reciting for us a speech that was inspired by Malcolm X.
Yes, it was a speech from Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, and Haile Selassie, mixed in together. Why should the Black man in America concern themselves? Since he's been away from the African continent, what impact does what happened to them have upon us? First, the colonial powers of Europe had complete control over Africa, and they projected the image of Africa negatively. Jungles, savages, nothing civilized. Why then was it so naturally negative to you and I that you and I began to hate it? We did not want anyone telling us anything about Africa, much less calling us Africans, and hating Africa and then hating the Africans. We ended up hating ourselves, because you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. You can't hate your origin and not end up hating yourself. You can't hate Africa and not hate yourself. You show me who has a negative attitude towards Africa, and I'll show you one who has a negative attitude towards himself. You cannot have a positive attitude towards yourself and a negative attitude towards Africa at the same time. When your attitude towards Africa becomes positive, you'll find that your attitude towards yourself also becomes positive. And this is what our enemies now. So they very skillfully made you and I hate our African identity, our African characteristics. We hated the color of our skin. We hated the blood of Africa that was flowing in our veins. And hating our blood, we hated ourselves. Our color became just like a prison. We felt that it was holding us back. So we turned to somebody else to show us the way. Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race you belong to so much that you don't even want to be around one another. Let me ask you this. Who taught you to hate being what God made you? God and nature first made us who we are, and then out of our own creative genius, we make ourselves who we want to be. Follow that great law. Let the sky and God be our limit and eternity our measurement. The black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of international greatness. So we saw that the first thing to do was to unite our people. We have to go back, get an ancient African tradition of unification and embed it into everyday life. An awareness of our past is essential to the establishment of our personality and our identity as Africans. Thank you.
Thank you. Solomon, I know I would love for you to, I don't know if you have a cell phone or if we can get an opportunity to record you. I think it broke up a little bit, and I want to do you your full justice in making sure that we get to hear the clarity and the expressions and everything. So I would ask our communication team if we could somehow try to work something out so we can make sure that we get that posted on our website, on our plug website. But that was great.
That was. Thank you, Solomon. And Daisha is currently trying to switch over from another link that she was on. So I'm wondering if we can go back to Anthony Conway. We can see him.
Sure.
Okay, Anthony. I still see his name here, but for some reason now his camera is not on. Mr. Conway, if you can hear me, it's now Anthony's turn. If you're able to turn his camera on and unmute him.
And if we, and here's the deal, if we're not able to connect with them tonight, I can tell you, we will make sure that we'll get an opportunity to get these presentations and get them up and posted.
Okay. That sounds great.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. Thank you, Ms. Faust. And we do look forward to the chance to not only hear all these presentations, but perhaps have the opportunity to meet these 4 winners when we're all able to come back together again. We would really like that chance to thank you and shake your hand and celebrate your accomplishment.
So Solomon and Lorenzo, thank you. Definitely needed that. We needed some kids. We needed some student vibe in our lives. It's been rough not being able to connect with you all. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Bedell.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Well, I think we're ready now to move to our next presentation, Board Policy 4.1. This is our
Dr. Bedell, can I interrupt you for 1 second? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can we just make a quick shout out to some very special students that we want to make sure they know that we are thinking about them right now, even as we are doing our best to stay home and safe and healthy. So I'll let you begin.
Yeah, I'll just start off by saying, first of all, once again, thank you to our current students. And we know that our goal is to see each and every single one of you get to what we're getting ready to present. I'm very happy for our seniors, and it's unfortunate that we're not able to go through our normal commencement procedures. One of the things we did say that we wanted to do was to try to figure out how could we honor you to the best of our abilities. And Ms. Manser will share a little bit with you all about what the board has done to help in this work. But these are senior signs for the class of 2020 that have arrived and will be going up into our yards throughout the city. This is Lincoln. The first one was East. And then this is our middle college, the students who graduate out of our middle college, middle college over on the Penn Valley campus. And we're excited. We're excited for the accomplishments, and we're looking forward to connecting with you all one way or another during the month of July. So Ms. Mansur, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, well, I've got my signs too. So Northeast Vikings, we are proud of you. Thank you so much for your efforts. And even though we couldn't be together in May, we're looking forward to celebrating your graduation. Next, I've got the Southeast Knights. So the Southeast Knights seniors, we wish you well. Stay strong this summer. And don't lose sight of your plans and goals. We're looking forward to a graduation ceremony and celebration with you sometime soon. Next, I've got Paseo Academy, and thank you all. We've got brilliant, smart, talented young people at every one of our schools, and we are excited for you to get this sign. We are proud of you, and we look forward to seeing you soon. And last but not least, we've got our Central High School Eagles. And again, we are looking forward to being together. We think that you are all deserving of recognition and celebration. We know your families are proud of you, and we are proud of you too. So thank you, everyone. And we look forward as a board to being able to see you soon.
And I do want to say this for listeners who are on, community members. I'm very thankful. We were looking to do something like this, and our board of directors, realizing that there was travel that we were all supposed to participate in, the NSBA, the National School Board Association, and there were some other travels that were scheduled. And they wanted to show their appreciation for the hard work of our seniors. And so it has allowed for us to design this, in a way that I think will be very tasteful. But we couldn't do this without the support of our board going into their budget to help us make this a reality. So thank you all. All right. And now we are ready for our board policy 4.1 workshop presentation, and we will pass it over to Ms. Wachel. This is her first presentation, and it's a lot of content, but it is some really good stuff. And I think it's timely given just what we just shared with you around what we're trying to do to market our schools and promote the good work that's taking place. So Ms. Wachel.
All right, Joe, are you ready to share your screen with us? There we go. Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Phillips. All right, so we're going to take you through the board policy 4.1 today and talk about communications. I have a wonderful team of support here with me who will pitch in with some of their comments and thoughts as we go through these slides. So just to overview quickly the policy, on the next slide is just an overview of the policy, and we'll go quickly through these slides. There you go. Talking about superintendent shall neither cause nor allow KCPS circumstances for current or prospective scholars, parents, guardians, or mandated parent organizations that are unsafe, undignified, or unnecessarily intrusive or restrictive. The next slide talks about the strategic plan and how our communications, community engagement team lines up with these pillars within our strategic plan. So safety nets, family and community engagement, communication, and community partnerships are those items that we'll be talking about this evening. One of the things that we think about in our communications team relates about what effective communication is. And so as you see these 4 bullet points here, we think effective communication is a two-way process with both internal and external customers. We think that communication helps increase student performance, innovation, and equity, and is the responsibility of every employee in the district, and is also in the best interest of our students and staff. We're going to talk about a couple things today as our communication plan will align with the strategic plan of the district, highlighting these key messages: performance innovation, future planning, equity, family engagement, communication, marketing, and perception. And then what you're going to hear a lot of tonight is student voice. As we went through the Hanover reports, as we do our assessments, review, and our research, we really look to our students as those trusted advisors, those trusted resources for our public. Audiences love to hear from our students and hear about their experience. So you're going to hear me talk about student voice tonight, a lot tonight. So we have a couple sample goals for you that will be built into our communication plan as we build it over the summer in conjunction with our marketing plan. This is a sample goal here, fostering trust and engagement through involvement opportunities and connection to our schools, thus managing the image and reputation of KCPS as strong and thriving. So we talk about key publics, who are our key audiences, students, families, staff, and community. And these are some objectives that we will go through and think about as we really deliver a communication plan that lines up with our strategic plan and our key messages. The next goal that we have as a sample for you is involving, again, student voice in the larger conversation of our school district and community and beliefs. When we get our students involved in the conversation, the 4 students that you just almost heard from here in the board presentation this evening, their voices are powerful. All the comments here in the chat feature speak to the endearing nature of our students and their performance, and they perform so well. And so when we can highlight those students and show off their talents and skills on a broader scale, it speaks to how we're preparing them for college and their life beyond. And so again, we'll use our students in the larger conversation to show who KCPS is. Another goal, cultivate and manage the KCPS brand. Again, how do we garner positive feelings for KCPS, for people to believe in the quality and goodness of what our school district provides? And we'll talk a lot about look and feel. What does our school district look and feel like? What is the experience when you walk into our schools? What is the experience when you visit our website, when you engage with our social platforms, when you listen to a podcast? What is that look and feel
Now joining.
that you get when you interact and engage with the district? Another sample goal talks about media relations, and you'll see later on in the presentation that we talk about number of positive, neutral, and negative stories that our external media produces. And so obviously the goal here is to promote positive media stories for our audiences to see and hear, to build awareness of our programs and our achievements. Again, make sure that our positive stories far outweigh our negative stories, and you'll see our data really points to the fact that our positive stories do outweigh our negative stories.
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Do we have
I apologize. Anthony Conway was supposed to do his speech over the phone, and somehow his internet got disconnected, and I'm one of the people that typically help with this.
Is Anthony prepared to do his speech right now?
Yes, he was trying to do it, and somehow his tablet got disconnected, and I was called in to see if I could get help. I don't know how to get him on the video call, but he's sitting with me right next to me, and he was wondering if he could go ahead and do his speech. He's kind of distraught.
We're good, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, Anthony, are you ready? Yes. Okay, is it okay if you guys don't see? He can just talk?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Here's Anthony. Here you go, Anthony. Fellow citizens of Africa, I greet you in the name of the Universal Negro Improvement Association in African Communities Week of the World. You may ask, what organization is that? But it's for me to inform you that the Universal Negro Improvement Association is an organization that seeks to unite into one solid body of 400 million Negroes of the world, to link up the 50 million Negroes of the United States of America with the 20 million Negroes of the West Indies, the 40 million Negroes of South and Central America, with the 280 million Negroes of Africa, for the purpose of bettering our industrial, commercial, educational, social, and political conditions. As you are aware, the world in which we live today is divided into separate race groups into different nationalities. Each race and each nationality is endeavoring to work at its own destiny to the exclusion of other race and other nationalities. We hear the cry of England for the Englishman, of France for the Frenchman, of Germany for the Germans, for Ireland for the Irish, Pakistan for the Jews, Japan for the Japanese, or China for the Chinese. We are the Universal Negro Improvement Association of Raising Across Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. There were 400 million Africans who had Negro blood coursing through their veins. And we believe that the time has come to unite these 400 million people from one common purpose to better our condition. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Superintendent and Board, for allowing that. I know he was crushed. He was ready with his tie and his suit on, so I'm glad it worked out. Thank you.
Tell him we'll get another video of him. We'll do that. We'll connect tomorrow and get him on video doing that again in his tie.
Okay, perfect. And while we're in here, Daisha, did you ever get in? Okay, I guess not. We tried. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Okay, I love everything about what just happened. That was fantastic.
That's awesome.
Talking about student voice and the importance of it, what a wonderful interjection for the presentation. Okay, so we're going to move to regular and routine communication for the school district. These are bullet items that we're going to overview this evening, talking about internal communication, news and information, media relations, external communication, and marketing as well. And you notice I'm going pretty quickly through these slides. The board does have this information and have had it since Friday. And so we'll go through this. I'll hit on the highlights through this presentation, and then we'll follow up with questions as you have them. But again, knowing that time is of the essence, want to make sure that we get through these in a timely manner. So internal communications, inside to outside, we know that our internal staff can be our best spokespeople, our best inside scoopers who go out and spread the good message when they're informed and equipped with the right information that we provide them. So you'll note that we do our Monday KCPS staff news, and we've really kind of tried to tweak this a little bit to have some personal messages in these weekly e-news. So again, our staff feel like they have the inside scoop on information for things that are upcoming. So as a board, I hope you receive these and get a chance to skim these every Monday when we send out the weekly e-news. We also have education media briefs that Brenda Horn sends out with media clippings from the day that goes to all of the leadership. Our staff intranet is also a great source for our staff to get information. And I believe on the next slide, you're going to see some examples of that staff intranet. You are. So this staff intranet, specifically relating to what we've been putting out around COVID-19, you'll see there at the bottom, we have everything from employee rights to Spanish information, information in Spanish, report forms, and then notification archives, benefit updates. We've really been keen on making sure that our staff feels equipped and prepared with information as we go through the COVID crisis in particular. Also up there in the right-hand corner, you'll see our weekly leadership updates. We have been really, it's been really important to us to send out a weekly brief to our leadership and our principals for them to see our media analytics, to see what stories are trending, what our audiences are engaging with, and also provide them our weekly e-news documents as resources so that they can use them in their school buildings as reference and stories for their own school communications. We also like to talk about telling stories. And so what I'm really proud of recently is our push to, again, highlight student voice. You have seen stories about Francisco there, photographed in the blue polo. He's currently in Mexico. He is one of our students on our student advisory committee, but he is currently working and learning in Mexico with his family, participating in distance learning, but also learning how to help his family with where they are in Mexico right now. You're also seeing stories about graduation. You saw stories about Tony at Manual Tech working on his graphic profession. And you're getting ready to see a lot more student stories as we roll out some more of these plug pieces in our online news magazine. KCPS podcast, TV and radio. I want to really highlight the podcast here as something that we've been intent on launching throughout this year. You'll note that we have 6 episodes under our belt, and you can see the topics there. Again, looking at student voice. And that first podcast we launched down there in the lower right-hand corner has to do with mentoring and their partnerships. And to Mr. Abarca's letter that he just read during the budget hearing, this podcast profiles one of our students and mentors at Paseo, and the love and the compassion and the real camaraderie that this young man and his mentor have is really, really endearing to see. So these are the kinds of stories we want to tell and that we want to promote throughout KCPS. I'm actually going to have Justin Robinson jump in here and talk a little bit about KCPS-TV and radio and what we're doing recently.
Thank you, Kelly. Madam Chair, members of the board. As always, Dr. Bedell challenged us to be innovative and creative once COVID-19 hit our community. He wanted us to find new ways to reach our families since we're not seeing our families and students every day. So what we've done is we revamped our KCPS-TV station, which was on Spectrum 18. We revamped that, and also we added to Google Fiber on channel 146. So now we have 24 hours a day, 7-day-a-week programming on there that you can see information that we hope to continue to populate more as time goes on. Also, what we've done is we've added a TV outlet
now
for us,
exiting.
on Telemundo. So this is channel 39 KGKC, which on Sunday mornings from 9 to 9:30, we have our bilingual communication specialist put on a TV show along with Camila Alvarez. And they do a show, again, focused towards families and communities in our Spanish-speaking community. We've also extended our voice on radio with Carter Broadcasting. We have a radio show at KPRT 1590, KPRS 106.1 FM that broadcasts on Wednesdays from 10 to 10:30. And also we have a radio show on La Grande, 1340 AM, and that broadcasts on Thursdays 11 to 11:30. And so we're just looking for ways to reach the community that maybe they don't have technology, maybe they couldn't get to us other ways. So we're going to the airwaves to reach the community over these next few weeks as the school year ends. And then we're talking about bigger plans as far as next year of how we can continue this and make it bigger in case we experience some of the things that we're experiencing right now.
Thank you, Justin. Excellent. Really excited about the work that the TV station, as well as those other outlets, provide for us, again, to reach students without maybe access to technology on a regular basis. All right, Joe, next slide. This is talking about our social media and how we tell stories through social media. We do have several platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Flickr, and you can see what accounts are through the district and what accounts we have at the school level as well. I'm really excited to show the Facebook post up there in the upper right corner. It's going to be a good day. We've got work to do. I hope all of you saw our student voice as it relates to how they're coping at home with distance learning. It reached almost 12,000 people, and it was one of our highest performing posts of the spring. So again, as we highlight our students and use them to help tell our story, we'll see a lot of engagement when we have those type of content. KCPS-TV, our stories, our schools, our station. The Twitter post here about our debate success was Debate KC, and then Instagram highlighting a teacher and students there in the classroom. This slide talks about the analytics as it relates to our social media. And as you can see, from Facebook to Twitter to Instagram, going from left to right there, we, from January 1st to April 30th this year, have really increased our audience. Now, from Facebook to 727 audience members, Twitter 557, and Instagram 167. Again, I attribute this a lot to some of the content that we're using relating to our students, but also knowing that COVID has had an impact on people engaging and seeking information from the district, and make sure that we're keeping up with timely and transparent communication around the coronavirus pandemic. Up there in the right-hand corner, you do see that on every Friday, we send you Media Analytics Board of Education so that you can see how our engagement is playing out each week. When you see under that Facebook column there to the left in that graphic where our likes are increasing and our reach is increasing, that green means that we're consistently increasing how many people see and interact with our content. These snapshots are not really intended for you to read. They're intended to be really examples of how we look at our website analytics and then determine what pages, what kind of content gets placed in the priority of each piece of content. So from our overall kcpublicschools.org site to our plug site to our Enroll KC site, you see 3 snaps here of how we look at the top 10 page views and visits for each of those sites. As we go into the next page, this will dive a little bit deeper into those website analytics. This is for the overall district page from 2017 to 2020. So you can see from school year 17-18 there on the left, down below to the school year 19, and then to the current school year, our page views just going up to over 5 million there. Our users increasing to over 800,000. And then you can see our top 10 page hits on the overall district site. And look at that coronavirus at number 8 coming in at almost 38,000 page views. Again, providing transparent, timely information for our public has been very important for us. On the next site, you'll see the plug website analytics. And again, this is our storytelling arm of the website, looking at the past 3 years and how our page views have increased this school year. And again, the top 10 page hits and what our audience really likes to read when it comes to the storytelling arm of our school district. So you all get to see in our Friday updates how we code our stories. If you look at the little spreadsheet, the little table right there, you see from date, publication, title description, rating, platform, and link. You get to see this every week, all of our external media. So this story was about Lincoln College Prep and being a top school in the nation and in the state of Missouri. And we code that there with a little orange and blue circles that relate to the key messaging up above, the performance, equity, future planning, communication, community well-being. We like to code our stories to know if our key messages are being hit when we're sending out news releases and sending out ideas and topics for our stories in external media. Also note on the left-hand side there, we have positive, neutral, and negative. Our positive and neutral stories far outweigh our negative stories, but it's still working to overcome some of those perceptions and just keep pushing and plugging away through those numbers of positive, neutral, negative. Now the neutral, just to be pretty clear about neutral is going to be just items of communication, coronavirus information, school calendar information, this is happening, food distribution. Those are just items of information that we send out that also get picked up externally. And you can see, again, been very successful in those positive and neutral pieces being picked up. Let's talk. This is a great feature that we have for our public to interact with us. You can see that we gave data for the past 3 years and what type of people use the platform, what kind of dialogue we receive. We ask for feedback on how we do on those exchanges, and then we also log the most active interest area. So you can see that by customer type, our parents, guardians, and community members are our largest customers who interact with Let's Talk. It's mainly questions. We do have some concerns, comments, suggestions, and we have 2% compliments, which we do like to receive. So thanks to those of you who send in compliments. Top interest areas, admissions and enrollment. It's by far our largest interest area that we get questions about. Ask Anything is that big bucket for all kinds of questions that we get, HR, academics, and then information technology. External communications. One thing that we're excited to talk about is the launch of our new site coming July 1st. We've gone through an RFP process over the course of the winter through early spring to land on a new website provider, and we will be working through the next couple months to fast and furiously and accurately get our whole website transferred over to our new site. Now, note that our current website has over 5,000 pages on it. As we look at those website analytics and the data, we do know that there are some priority hotspots that our audience likes to go to and they expect from us to have. So we're really going to hone down that homepage, our navigation, our utility bars to focus on our customers of our students and families and the experience that they get when they come to our website. We also know that our staff is our largest engager with our website. So make sure that our intranet, that our information is, again, timely and up to date. It's really important for our staff. You'll note here we have 2 snapshots of our KCPS in Espanol website. This has been a very much a labor of love for our bilingual communication specialist, Jonathan Solomon, Justin Robinson and team, to make sure that we're servicing all of our families and students who experience multiple languages with us. We also service our school websites to make sure that they're up to date and make sure that they're having content for their specific schools that's relatable to their families. And then School Messenger, robocalls, text messages, parent emails. This is our direct line to our families and students when we want to send emergency communication and really high-level important information about the operations of the school district. Again, I'm going really fast, everybody, but thanks for bearing with us. External communications, these are some samples of our graphic design products that we produce. This is our Quest Summer School flyer in both Spanish and English. And then you also see the Enroll KC, some of that advertising that we do on our homepage of our website. The next slide is going to talk about media ads, billboards, mailers, and the Enroll KC website specifically. These are some snapshots of some of our direct mail, our newspaper ads, our website banners that we've been launching over the course of this school year. On the left, you see both English and Spanish of some of our newspaper ads, advertising for kindergarten enrollment and kindergarten roundup, those type of activities. And then you see Lincoln Middle School photos there in the background, and then Holiday Montessori and Gladstone. Again, just making sure that we're targeting some of these neighborhood schools to increase our enrollment there and really speaking directly to those neighborhood families. And just to note too, we do have a full-fledged marketing plan coming out this summer as directed by Dr. Bedell's goals and the Board of Education. So that's just a very small snapshot of the marketing arm of what our communications team helps service. Blueprint 2030, this is just an extension of talking about communications, and that while we're going through the Blueprint 2030 process, the communications team is very much engaged in helping along the way. So we are employing our communications plan throughout last fall and through this spring to make sure that we're hitting lots of audiences, and engaging lots of folks through the process. We have an engagement series timeline. We have a Blueprint 2030 website, and we're really keen. I know that Ms. Woofsy was talking about that two-way, that town hall, closing the feedback loop. Are we listening? Are we getting feedback from our audience, from our public? So as we close that feedback loop in Blueprint 2030, making sure we use that feedback to inform our decisions going forward. All right, I'm going to hand this one off to Ms. Courtney Adams, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the DAC and student and family engagement.
Thank you. Good evening. KCPS wants to build family and student advocates, decision makers, and collaborators. One way we do that per Board Policy 4.1.10 is through our parent and student leadership organizations, both at the school and district level. Our district-wide parent leadership organization is our District Advisory Committee, which addresses and supports parents, parent organizations, district administration, and the board. The DAC holds quarterly general body meetings and monthly subcommittee meetings. To be responsive to the needs of our school communities this year, the themes and presenters at the general body meetings were determined by last year's end-of-year survey responses. Also new this year was an opportunity for public comment, which allowed families to let their voices be heard and to let some of their concerns be addressed in real time. And we've gotten great feedback about that. So that is something that we're going to look to continue in the next year. So here on this slide, I've included a snapshot of DAC meetings and activities for the year, and want to highlight that we've doubled meeting attendance, averaging over 60 participants representing 26 schools. We look forward to continuing to have strong representation from both our families and staff at future meetings and fostering a culture of collaboration, responsiveness, and advocacy. The DAC Executive Board and I will meet over the summer for a retreat to identify focus areas for next year and develop a plan to strategically support the district to maximize its impact. Next slide. At the school level, to empower more advocates and decision makers, we have our parent leadership organizations, which are our SACs, PTAs, PTOs, and a few other miscellaneous parental governance committees. So on this slide, I've outlined the number of organizations we have and their activity or engagement level as inactive, moderately involved or connected, which is a group of parents that attend scheduled meetings and supports the school's programs and initiatives, and fully engaged or active, which I'd say is a solid group of parents that regularly meet. They've identified focus areas for the year and activities for the year, and they're ingrained in the school community and its initiatives. Next year, my department and the DAC Executive Board will primarily focus on connecting with the schools with inactive or non-existent organizations and try to help the school personnel address some of the barriers to engagement in getting an organization off the ground and at least getting them to have their parents be moderately involved. As I mentioned, KCPS also wants to make sure that we're creating advocates and collaborators in our students and amplifying their voice. So I'll turn it over to Camila Alvarez, our Partners in Education Coordinator, to talk about the inaugural year of the Student District Advisory Council, student voter registration efforts, and a couple other items.
Good afternoon, board. So as you know, the Student District Advisory Council, we began this year, and it's comprised of student ambassadors from grades 9 through 12. And we wanted this year to be kind of a norm-setting year for the students. So as you can see, you guys have seen our presentation. So the first semester, we spend a lot of times identifying those gaps, and the students took times getting into groups and identifying improvement plans to present to the board. And our second semester, we began working on our pilot program for our student-led resource fair at East. So again, we divided up into different groups and we worked on marketing materials, the event flow, day of planning, and even drafted a letter for community support. Currently, we're working on collecting some end-of-the-year survey information. And that's one of the quotes that we received from our students, but that got postponed. The resource fair got postponed due to COVID-19. So we are hoping that next year we can pick up right where we left off with our students. The next slide. Part of our student voter registration that we did this year, we had at least one student voter registration drive at each of the high schools, and we were able to register over 105 students to vote. Some of those were, those voter registration drives were scheduled for March through May and were canceled due to COVID, but we are hoping to reschedule those for next year and continue this work and create more student advocates along the way.
Camila, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask what you and Courtney did last Friday.
Yes. Oh, I forgot to turn my camera on. I'm sorry. I'm not used to having a camera on, but hey. So last Friday, we were able to go out and see our students. We gave them their t-shirts and we got to meet with some of the parents and chat with them for a while. So it was great to see their faces and give them little goodie bags and end of the year notes. So we got to hang out with our favorite kids.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad. Thanks for sharing that. Again, when we can have a little bit of personal connection with our students and families during this time, it certainly makes our day, right? Thank you guys for doing that. Joe, we can go to the next slide. Oh, Camila, this is still your slide.
Oh, yes. Okay. So this slide shows us the community engagement piece that we did. On the right-hand side first, we'll start off with Summerfest, and this is our impact report. So through our partnership with Uncover KC, they were able to provide us with this report that just kind of gives us some of those numbers around the volunteers that we had participate and the number of hours that they were able to provide for us, and the organizations that helped with that. We were able to serve 707,200 attendees, and we gave away 7,000 backpacks. We also gave away 5,000 sets of school supplies and uniforms and a bunch more. So on the left-hand side, we have some of that family or the community engagement piece that we did as part of Blueprint 2030 to include that family survey, the staff survey, and the focus groups that we did earlier on this year. There is no GPA minimum requirement for student advisors. I saw that question in the chat and I wanted just to answer that very quickly, but there is no GPA minimum requirement for SDEC.
Thank you, Dr. Jones, and thank you, Camila, as well. So let's talk about town halls next. We hosted 2 town halls with Dr. Bedell over the course of this year. And you can see the schools listed here. We bring them to one location. We hosted at Southeast and at Northeast this year. Dr. Bedell really gets in front of these students, as you can see in the photo there. And he talks about his story a little bit, talks about district topics, talks about initiatives, and talks about where we're going. And then the students get up and so wonderfully and beautifully ask questions of Dr. Bedell, and then he very honestly and frankly answers those questions for the students. It's also a time for Dr. Bedell to hear a little bit of feedback from the kids. They're great when they provide some thoughts to him, some ideas of what we should be working on, and then some ideas of what we should be thinking about moving forward for the future of KCPS. You can see we have over 200 views on YouTube for that first session and then 60 views on YouTube for that second session. So we like to promote these as a chance for Dr. Bedell to interact with the kids and the kids to interact with Dr. Bedell as well. And then the next slide is about student rallies. And these are another similar thing to our town halls. Dr. Bedell goes to the elementary schools for grades 4 through 6, about 800 students this year at these schools, Faxon, Carver, Garfield, Rogers, and Hartman. And he goes through his beautiful slide presentation where he talks about his growing up, his childhood, and he really lays out for our students what his experience was like and how he got to where he is as the superintendent of KCPS. The kids then ask him questions and sometimes share stories with him as well. It gives a chance to engage with our kids, to provide them some hope, provide them with experience and belief in what we're doing as a system and what we do for our students throughout the system in KCPS. One of the things that I told Dr. Bedell this morning is that when we were at Hartman in November, some of the students actually wrote him thank you notes and wrote some thoughts about his presentation that were handwritten and sent to him. And I wish we could have had a couple snapshots of those letters for you because they were lovely, they were heartfelt, and they were very thoughtful in how the kids provided their own comments for Dr. Bedell and how his experience very much relates to some of our kids' experience. And our kids love feeling that they have an ally in their superintendent. All right, what's coming next? New website, like we mentioned, in July 2020, more in Espanol content, as well as additional languages through a partnership with our Language Services Department, more engagement through Blueprint 2030, more podcasts. We just went through and listened to our Lincoln Prep seniors. There's 4 lovely ladies who talk about their distance learning experience and their upcoming college plans that will be launched ASAP. Really excited for you to hear that. Again, our students are fantastic, and when you hear from them in their voice, you get to see what we produce every day in KCPS. So more podcasts coming up. Like Justin talked about, improved KCPS-TV and radio shows, more student voice, and then formal communications and marketing plans. I do want to leave this presentation with one comment. We were featured in the Kansas City Star this morning talking about how many of our students are engaged during this time of distance learning. And I want to say that Brett from Northeast, the principal at Northeast Middle School, provided this comment. He was talking about one of his teachers who spent 7 hours of one of her day picking up parents and driving them to the locations to pick up their devices and hotspots for their kids. And this is the quote that Brett has in the Star today. When we are finally able to connect with students, they know how much we love them, and then we see this turnaround in engagement. So it's about love, it's about engagement, and servicing our kids at a really high level, and that's what we're here to do. Questions?
Any questions from my colleagues?
So no, it's Jennifer. Sorry, I had to get off mute and get on thing. So thank you. I mean, it's a lot. It's like everything. So I'm digesting. Of course, I'm most interested in the part that's to come, which is the marketing and retention effort that I think I understand your team will be working on. Can you give a rough idea? You said summer, so I was just curious when that might be.
So we like to, in school districts, work for, 2020, 2021, kind of in school year increments and plan for when we're going through the duration of the school year. So yes, this summer, as we start rolling out plans for marketing for the 2020-2021 school year, you'll get to see that as we come up for this summer and early fall.
Okay. Okay.
And I hope that I gave enough foreshadowing, talking about the Hanover reports, the Mass Insight reports, all these assessment reports, that we're really using those right now to help drive decisions in those plans.
And that was kind of, that's what I'm glad that you said that, because there is all of this data and research and then, focus group information that we should be using to then drive that overall strategy and then what the actual plans would be. I am looking, as a board member, I've been on this bandwagon for, like, everybody knows that knows me for the last 5 years, that if we feel we need to use outside resources to assist us in this, I am very much in the behind you, that if that's the direction that you think you may need to go, then let's have that discussion. So I just am glad. I wanted to kind of get an idea of your timing. So it's like you're taking in all this information and then crafting the plan kind of, and then coming back to the board like July, August-ish.
Yes, we're prepared to do that. As I talked to Dr. Bedell and see what his timeline and your timeline as a board is for the upcoming topics, we're prepared to do that in that time frame.
Okay.
And also to that point, you'll note as you get to see more of the budget details coming up, that marketing line item, we very much are being cognizant about dedicating resources to that marketing line item, to maybe to your point, even of the external piece. But we'll get to that as we talk about the budget.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was going to be looking for it in there for your budget too, for you.
Good.
Other questions from other colleagues?
Yeah, this is Nate. So I promised that Jen and I did not coordinate our commentary here, but probably not surprising where I'm going to go either. But let me first start by saying, Kelly, look, particularly on the communication side, it's clear that the structure that's been put in place since you came on board, and I know you've got a team of folks behind you as well. You're not doing all this stuff by yourself by any stretch, but leadership does matter, and you can see sort of the work that you've been doing and sort of the expertise that you bring on that side of the house coming to fruition through the work and the structure and the organization, as well as, starting to think about how we go put the student voice first in everything we do. So thank you, and Justin, the rest of the team as well for all of that, because I feel like they've embraced you as a leader. And that's really, really helpful as you guys go work together effectively. On the marketing side, I'll be a little bit more direct maybe than Ms. Wolfsey was, in terms of, is it your expectation that the district is going to develop the marketing strategy itself?
I would say we're leaning that way, but as we set Dr. Bedell's goals, that we talked about over the next year, really developing that and then implementing and executing those things as we get through the next year. So, I'm open to external help. At the same time, I think we have great internal expertise. There's probably a good balance there of seeking outside counsel as well. I don't think we're closed off to that. I just know that we have really good folks internally that have some expertise. So I'm happy to hear what you think about that, but I'm not closed off to the idea of having external support.
Okay, thanks.
Additional questions or comments from board members? I do have a question. And my question, I think it was helpful to really see the whole range of communications tools and modes that you are using. And so I think one sort of, I don't know if it's a question, but a comment, but there are multiple ways that people can learn about KCPS and also gain a better understanding of who our students are and the ways in which they shine. And so I just thinking about, just hearing this presentation tonight and seeing your slides a few days ago reminded me of the podcast. Sometimes we are being barraged by new modes of communications as we are many of us are, working remotely from home. And so the social and digital communication has just exploded. And so I think this is just a suggestion that continuously look for ways to cut through everybody else and get us right out front. So that's just a comment. And then my question is regarding the redesign of the website. Is there a mechanism or process you use in which you utilize some of our parent leaders, active SAC members, or other active parents at a variety of schools to be guest users to test drive to see if it feels intuitive and makes sense for them? Because I know sometimes, having gone through this process in my own professional work, sometimes what I believe is intuitive from the organizational standpoint may not be for the end user. And I'm just wondering if there's a mechanism in place by which you're going to kind of test it out.
So we have a really tight turnaround in our timeline to launch by July 1st. But Ms. Manser, I really like that suggestion. And just as we've employed DAC or those PTAs to support the enrollment platform, I think we can very easily recruit them to help give us feedback about our website.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from board members?
Kelly, I have a question. This is Mark Wasserstrom. I was reading through a lot of the information we got from Kenny Southwick and from Barget and Associates about the provisions in the pending legislation. And in one of the omnibus bills, there's a provision that would fine the school district $100 a day if we don't have a notice about how the students can sign up for the distance learning courses that are mandated by the state, for all the kids and throughout the state of Missouri. And so I was just looking through the website. Do we have something like on the front page to tell students about all the courses they could take online so they don't have to worry about whether schools are open or closed?
So, Mr. Westrom, are you referring to like the virtual course programs that we have available through the district?
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
I mean, the act hasn't passed yet, but it shows a certain interest on the part of people in the state legislature that the program that DESE has developed for virtual schools be promoted. And I'm just wondering whether we're using our website to effectively communicate to families of students and students that they have all these courses that they could take for credit for free online.
Let me look at more detail of that bill, Mr. Wasserman, and then we'll make sure that we have that content prepared for our website. I know we have information about it on our website. I just don't know that that's highlighted in prominent positions to where we talk about it on a regular basis or, have it as a boilerplate. But let me look into that for you. And I'll follow up in a Friday update.
Thanks.
And then one more thing, Ms. Manser, I know Nate asked us, or Mr. Hogan asked us on a previous call about our earned media versus our unearned media. I pulled that together, or Ray and Lynn and our team pulled that together. So I'll provide that in a Friday update as well so you guys can see those numbers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So unless there are other questions, I'll turn this back to Dr. Bedell for to move to our next presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will move to Blueprint 2030 update. I know that the slide deck had a number of slides in there, and I shared with the board at the conclusion of executive session that there are areas in there where we've already provided significant information to the board, especially the slides that pertain to the system analysis. And we only have updated that with some new data. I don't know that it's something that we really need to focus on covering tonight. We have a board workshop that will take place on June the 3rd where we can go deeper into that. So we wanted to just be mindful of, as I said earlier, the amount of screen time that people are sitting here looking at this screen, and also be mindful of people's schedules. So we are going to move past some of those slides, and we will make sure that the new information that's extremely relevant that this board and community needs, we will provide that for you tonight. So we'll pass this over to Kelly and Shannon Jacks.
All right, so I'll start as we parlayed communications into Blueprint 2030 here. On that first slide, Shannon, I think it gives us the agenda of, quick agenda. We're going to give you an advisory team update, an internal assessments report update, and then talk about next steps pretty quickly. So let's give you some advisory team updates. We went over with the team. This was in April. We have our next meeting tomorrow as an advisory team. Again, over 80 plus community members, from parents to stakeholders to staff who engage with us on this advisory team. We just have gone over the schedule with them, the phases. I want to point out here, we're still in this assessment phase, and due to COVID, we've really had to kind of stretch that out a little bit. But one thing that we want to make sure that we highlighted for you is the recommendations, implementation evaluation. We still hope to get to recommendations later this fall, early winter, so that you as a board have some concrete things to work with and some concrete decisions to make as we get through the rest of this fiscal year. So just wanted to note that again, as far as our timeline goes. These are some quick snapshots of our advisory team debrief and some of the feedback that these 80 plus members gave us for that advisory team meeting. I went ahead and highlighted some of the standout comments that were repeated among all the breakout sessions. So talking about facilities, the number of facilities versus the number of students and the inefficiencies that we have. Also, you see that we highlight, it's good to see that KCPS is making gains against the state, because we are, and there's a steady increase in that, but we do want those gains to happen faster. And we know that as a board and as a community, as staff, as leadership, we do want that to happen faster, but it is noted that we are making gains, and that has been resonating with people in our community. This slide talks about critical issues that we want to address during Blueprint 2030 from that advisory team. Talking about developing relationships and resiliency to be able to stick with something. We think about mobility in KCPS. How do we account for mobility? How do we make experiences that help retain our students? If we can also affect decrease that mobility in our school district. You also are going to see in some of the data that when students stay with KCPS, graduation rates are higher, MPI scores are higher, proficiency rates are higher, and that's something that is also resonating with our community and this advisory team. Talks about dollars and cents here, amount of money spent on schools with low enrollment, just because of the system that we have built here in KCPS. The next one talks about critical issues again being addressed. You hear us talk about reframing the narrative, improving marketing. These highlighted areas are talking about KCPS in contrast to charter schools, talking about who's more aggressive on marketing and enrollment, personally conveying messages to kids, and then how do we sell the dream to our parents? This is what we need to use student voice for as we show experiences and talk about the dream of KCPS and public schools. This is what we do every day. How do we continue to show that and sell that to our parents and to our students? This question was, how can our organizations who are partnering with us throughout this process help us? And it talks, these organization partners talk about helping people see the momentum behind KCPS. We are making strides, we are making progress. How are we telling that story? And how are we using humans, students, staff to humanize and tell that story to the greater Kansas City community? Also, mobilizing the troops. I think these comments were actually from Julie Lynch at Hale Cook, talking about there's a success story and lots of nuggets of success stories in our community in our schools, and how are we conveying that message, and how do we use all of the resources that we have to exponentially grow, going beyond one school.
So with the internal assessment reports, Dr. Bedell mentioned, we've kind of shortened what we're going to go over today. And so the main thing that we wanted to touch on today is the middle school perception survey. Some of the other items or the remaining assessment reports we'll go over either at next board meeting or at the workshop on June 3rd. So you can see those listed there. Just to familiarize yourselves with the way that the assessment reports are set up, I've put a couple of copies of the different sections of the transfer analysis report that we were originally going to go through today. But we've set these all up around the purpose. So why is it that we decided to conduct the internal assessment report? The approach, which outlines methodology, data sources, so that there's an understanding there. Then we have a section with the key findings. And so you'll see that when we go through the middle school perception survey, I'll highlight those key findings on one page. And then we have a next steps section because they're based off of kind of our initial assessment or look. There is either additional data that we want to dive into further, or if we had access to some additional data, things that we could do as we continue to work through these. And then each of the reports has the supporting document. So that's either a slide deck or memos to support that backup. So with the middle school perception survey, this is the list of key findings that are in that report. I do want to note, I was printing it out for myself today and then realized I had attached the system analysis report to the middle school perceptions slide deck. So I sent to June this evening the corrected one. So you should have that in your email if you hadn't had a chance to look at the actual report yet. But the items that are highlighted, we're going to go through in the next couple of slides. This is a survey that we hadn't originally intended to do as part of Blueprint 2030. But when Dr. Bedell was going out and visiting elementary schools, and we found out it was 4th to 6th graders, we said, this is a great opportunity. We have a captive audience. Those are the grade levels that we have some challenges with retaining. As you may remember from the system analysis, 4th to 5th grade is a major challenge for us, as well as 6th to 7th. And so we thought this was a good opportunity to hear from those students directly around what they know about their middle schools or what their perceptions are about them. So we'll go through that a little bit. I do want to note we have shared some of the data with our principals at the February principals meeting, and we broke out into teams by feeder pattern, high school feeder pattern. And they started reviewing the data, brainstorming some strategies and solutions around mobility, improve retention, especially as we matriculate from elementary to middle to high school. And those notes are included in that report, assessment report, and is something that we will come back to as we go into the solutions phase of Blueprint 2030. So a couple slides on the results of the survey. We had about over 2,000 students participate. You can see the breakdown between 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. The first question we asked them was, how would you rate your neighborhood middle school? The highest number of responses was I don't know, followed by okay. When we showed this to the principals, they asked for us to break this information down further to see how it varied based off of grade. So here's that same question, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So you can see the purple color is that I don't know. And while it's higher at 4th grade, which you would expect, we still have about 35% of the students that responded is I don't know. And since these were taken between, I think it looked like it was October through January, we were already into the enrollment admissions process. And so some opportunity to still talk to our students around what their neighborhood middle school is, build those connections between the elementaries and their middle school feeders, so that there is more awareness around both Northeast Middle and Central Middle. We also asked students why they gave their neighborhood middle school the rating that they did. Because we had so many say, I don't know, we didn't get everyone to respond here. But this is a word cloud that was produced by the SurveyMonkey tool. It's not the best word cloud that I've ever seen, and we don't have as much flexibility as we'd like here, but a couple of things to notice. You see good school a lot. We also see a couple of fights or bullying, which kind of relate to that, you know, the students that either rated it very low or low, which was not very high, which is a good thing, as well as then the percentage of students that are rating them high or very high. Next question that we asked students was, where do you plan to go for middle school? Again, the highest response was I don't know, with 608 students, followed by Lincoln Prep Middle and Northeast Middle School. We broke this one further by 4th, 5th, and 6th grade again. So that I don't know response is in that brown tan color. One thing that was interesting here to see was how few students identified that they plan to go to a charter school. So charter is the pink color right next to the tan. It is very small. I think it was 1.5%. And we know that we lose a lot of students, especially from 4th to 5th grade to charters, and some still from 6th to 7th. You know, this doesn't necessarily support what you see happening in action, but maybe this means that there's an opportunity of informing those students about our school options for middle school, so that, you know, we can turn some of these I don't knows into Northeast Middle, Central Middle, or our signature middle school options. So again, here's a word cloud with why the students selected the middle school. One thing that was very clear here, and I think this resonates with what we heard in the Hanover research around how important the word of mouth and where family members, friends go. You see sister, brother, mom, cousin, dad. You see this happening over and over again as the response of why they've chosen that particular middle school. So, you know, those connections that we make with our students and their families, definitely critical here. So I know that we've had a really a long set of meetings today, so we are excited to be able to go into the transfer analysis report and some of the other assessment reports at our next couple of meetings. But here's what we have coming up. So for the remainder of our assessment phase, we do have a meeting with our Blueprint 2030 advisory team tomorrow. So we're going to be going through the assessment reports with them as well, and then gathering their feedback in small group discussions. We'll be back to meet with you on May 27th with some additional updates, as well as the board workshop on June 3rd. Originally, we'd hoped to be able to not just share with you the assessment reports, but to start connecting and seeing those synergies and kind of the reoccurring themes that are really going to guide goal setting. Hopefully we will still get to that piece as we're introducing some of the new data to you as well. But after we have our next 2 advisory team meetings and the board workshop, then we move into the goal setting phase. I'll turn it over to Kelly, who's going to talk about the next stages of our engagement plan.
So yeah, just a quick reminder on this. Is there an echo?
Yeah, people need to mute. We should be good.
Try this again. Okay, better. Like we talked about, using Thought Exchange as a crowdsourcing platform for possibly garnering feedback about our distance learning practices and how they've gone well, or we've had some challenges. We want to use Thought Exchange because we can't be in person this summer, as that online engagement for our next phase of goal setting in the blueprint process. So that will happen over the course of June and July. It's not the most ideal time to try to engage some of your stakeholders as it is summertime. However, it's been a little bit wonky, as we know, due to COVID. And so we'll employ some strategies that help garner some of that feedback from our community. We're also going to go out to community partners, community entities, to attend their meetings in the community and talk about updates regarding Blueprint 2030. So whether it's city council, whether it's neighborhood meetups, whether it's churches, whether it's neighborhood, what's what I'm looking for here? Neighborhood community meetings, all of those. What is the word I'm looking for? Someone help me.
Neighborhood associations.
Thank you. I was neighborhood associations. But again, just going out to the community and making sure that we're interacting with them and going to them versus them having to come to us. And then as we hopefully are in person as we get through the fall timeline, what does a gallery walk look like where we can personally interact with stations on facilities, operations, academics, programming, the process, recommendations, and just talking more in small groups personally with our stakeholders who want to come interact with us.
Are we at questions at this point?
Yes.
All right. So I want to open, I know that this was a much shorter discussion. I also know that the board is going to have additional information that we receive at our next board meeting, I believe you said. And then as well, we have a special time set aside on Wednesday, June 3rd for discussion of all of the studies that have been conducted, those critical assessments, and what some of your takeaways are, and also what the board sees as either very positive or areas for development, correct?
Correct.
All right. So I want to open it up for board questions or comments.
I'll start. This is great stuff. I'm bummed we have to just do the one, but I appreciate it because I am getting a little zoomed or teamed out. So Shannon, what was interesting is I'm like dead in the middle of this survey group, right? Because I had a 6th grader that went to 7th grade. So what was interesting, and I just would share back to you, is maybe you might find the data to intersect with it, is, this is student data. Parents are going to be, so at 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, so that I don't know doesn't surprise me that much. One, because maybe we don't promote enough, but really, how much did Abby, or my child, know at 4th grade where she was going to go? And how much do parents control that discussion? So if we could take what we know about what parents are saying about middle school and overlay it and see if that tells us something. Because I think I was saying to Patty at one point, it was interesting. A fellow came, I think it was Mr. Peacock from Paseo, over to Border Star and gave this presentation, and it was clear all the kids were like, we're going to Paseo. And the parents were talking about it online. They were amazed, but I can tell you a number of those parents had already made that decision for those children years before. So I'm just curious how that information, we just need to take those two pieces into account.
Other questions or comments? I do have I'll put in sort of a comment that has occurred to me as I've gone through this, and interestingly or not surprisingly, even though my children are not grown, I had 3 children who went through this system. I graduated my last child from KCPS in 2016, but even when I think back 20 years, I think there was still some of these same issues, which is there are decision times that I can see based on the information that we've been provided, not just tonight, but in others. There are natural transition periods where people, where families and their children have to confront a decision. And so figuring out how to best get information and experiences in front of those children and families prior to them really hitting the moment of the decision point. So for me, my decision points took me all the way through the system with 3 children, but I know people who at various points in the time fell out. And so knowing the richness of the programming, extracurriculars, and other supports that we are providing, far beyond, I think, what was in place when my oldest child started school more than a couple decades ago, then how do we really make sure we are identifying and recognizing how we get to families prior to that decision moment? Because once a family hits a decision moment, they're going to make a quick decision, and it may not, all of these various conditions and factors may not get a full balanced view.
Well, and I think, Ms. Manser, the decision points are earlier and earlier with the configurations that exist within some of the charter systems. Yeah. So some of those starting at 5th grade, you're seeing those decision points earlier, more so for, kind of the central portion of our district and south, but also, throughout the entire system.
And I understand there's some systemic issues that contribute to the proliferation of all these various options at various points in time can creates an additional disruption in people's where and when they think they have to make decisions. I just want us to think about how do we make the right connections to families.
And I know this is something that we kind of discussed briefly a while ago, but I do think that at some point we'll have to engage in some realistic conversations with parents about what they can expect from other schools. So just thinking about the chatter that I hear in elementary school now with parents of 3rd and 4th graders, they are getting the postcards from Kaufman right now that say, we're focusing on this, and this is what our academic rigor is like. And they're saying things like, this number of our students have gone on to college, and this is how much they got in scholarships. So I've heard from parents who say, look, my kid's probably not going to be able to get into Lincoln Middle. And so I think I'm thinking about Kaufman. And I heard that Kaufman helps kids get scholarships. And so, as someone who, is comfortable looking through data sets, I can kind of talk to people about, well, let's look at some other numbers that, aren't going to be splashed on a postcard in your mailbox, and help them see that just because this is what's being boasted doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen for their own kid. But I do think that we are being very nice, and we're being very cordial, and I know that's just a good way to be, but I think that we do have to figure out, how do we have a real conversation that says, here's what we are providing, and what they're offering you is not much different. So yeah, like, people are looking at APR scores, and they're looking at those things now in 4th grade and having these discussions in the hallway about, do you think your kid is going to get into Lincoln Middle? And if not, what? So I'm sorry, I don't know how to do that. I'm not trying to critique, but I'm just trying to think of how we have that kind of real discussion with parents, because they're not going into these other schools with different attitudes. And the last thing I'll say is to, I I can't remember if it was Jennifer or Patty's point that children might be saying one thing, or students are saying one thing when they're in 4th, 5th grade about what middle school they're going to. But as a parent, you know, a lot of us know I'm looking at scores, I'm looking at what I've heard about a school, I'm looking at parents I might know whose kids attend those schools and what they say about the school. So my kid probably has, like, I'm giving maybe 5% weight to what they say about what school they want to go to. As a parent, I'm making that based off of, you know, reputations and all of the things I know about. So that just takes me back to my point of figuring out how we have a real conversation with parents in 4th, 5th grade or whatever about, you know,
Yeah.
is the stuff you're receiving really all that, if it makes sense, you know?
And I think, Dr. Jones, I love your comments, and you're always very intuitive, and you're always very spot on with your thinking around this. You know, as Dr. Bennell and I have visited and leadership have visited, it's probably time for us to start touting how many charter schools we're outperforming. It's probably time for us to go right at APR and go right at some of that competition. And that was echoed in some of our advisory team comments as well. I didn't put them on the screen, but I heard that from a couple of our participants. So I'm all for that. I'm ready to go straight at some of that data and straight at some of that conversation. And that's where we have to be, because people choose on performance. And if we're outperforming almost half of our charter schools in English and or math, then we have to be able to say that.
Are there additional board questions or comments? Again, I know that this is only kind of a high level look at this, and we are going to have ongoing discussions. That's been one of the pledges that you know, we have made as a board, is that we want to fully understand and be fully versed in this information. So, but I do want to make sure there's that opportunity for additional comments.
So this does not need an answer tonight. This is kind of really posing the question maybe for the next presentation, which is, I see a long list of surveys and reports and studies. And then I see that we're having our workshop on June 3rd. Is the workshop to introduce us to those studies and then give us an opportunity to kind of understand them in the context that you'd like us to? And then we're coming back together at some point in the future, or are we supposed to be receiving and getting an opportunity to dig into those before the workshop? So, you know, kind of what's the progression, and at what point will we kind of have an opportunity to read and be prepared to ask questions at a different level, and kind of look across, just like we just were about some of the Hanover data versus the student perception data of middle schools. So don't have to answer tonight. I'd like to understand kind of what our process and our role will be as we lead into the recommendations phase.
Thank you.
Ms. Manser, can I just share something with that? I think what we had originally hoped was be able to introduce to you half of the assessments tonight, the other half at the next board meeting. And then when we come together for the workshop, that you will see how our leadership team has identified you know, the key themes, how they interrelate, what we see as needing to start moving forward with in goal setting. But since, you know, I know that we already have pretty heavy board meetings, you know, tonight, and then for the next one, probably since it's a business meeting, our leadership, our technical team meets next week. And so this will be one thing that we relook at as to, you know, how do we get the information all out to you? How do we best use that workshop time on the 3rd? So we'll be in communication with Board Chair Manser as we work through that next week.
I have one more thing, Patty, I wanted to say as a comment. Just these are areas that I think I'm very interested in. I noticed in the survey, I can't remember which question it was, but I noticed the presence of my brother, my sister, which says to me household, and how critical it is that we recognize that household component to decision making, because once one goes, you take 2 or 3 more with you. And so just how that will play into all of the analysis and recommendations. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. There's a lot for us to digest, correct, Dr. Bedell?
Yeah, there's a lot to digest, and we have to figure out just the triangulation of all of this and making sure that the board has a full understanding of where our thinking is based on the interpretation of the data, but we also, your interpretation of the data and what does that mean, because ultimately it's going to be your vote that's going to allow for us to move forward. So we want to do everything that we can to make sure that it's a lot of data, but to make sure that you all have an understanding of the thinking, the reasons why we went in a certain direction rather than going in another direction around our thinking, and then have opportunities to challenge, and then the goal is by the time we do come to you all for a vote, I think you're very confident and very comfortable because you've gotten a full understanding. So it's definitely, it's going to take some time, but our technical team, as we work together, will make sure that the information that you all need and the most critical information that you need in order to be able to form and shape your questions are presented and provided.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. So we will work on figuring out the best way to have that conversation, and also to, discuss as a board collectively, what our sort of needs are in our ability to adjust our own schedules to open up additional opportunities for conversation in this arena. And I think you'll find that the board is amenable to that. So with this, we now turn to, you are going to introduce a couple of items for the May 27th business meeting.
Yes, Madam Chair. We have 4 items at this point that we will ask the board to take action on. Our Quest Summer School budget of $1,587,553. The acceptance of the School Smart grants for hotspots in the amount of $611,000. The grades 4 through 8 interactive flat panels from Kansas City Audiovisual in the amount of $817,530 out of the CARES Act. The grades 7 through 12, we're in that cycle now to update our Chromebooks for our secondary schools from Worldwide Technology, which is a 100% MBE. In the amount of $3,051,173 that will be funded out of CARES Act money. And then ultimately, this is not an item that should be here. I thought we had scratched that, but we will continue to provide the budget updates as we continue to move through the process of taking the board to take action. So that is not an action item.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bedell. With that,
sorry, can I just interject real quick? Dr. Bedell, I think May 27th, we were going to have a sort of close to final budget discussion. We wouldn't have the board documents per se, but Ms. Quinley was going to walk through in a PowerPoint deck a near final document on the 27th, and then we would come back on June 10th.
Right.
And have another conversation after that with the full board documents.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to make sure it was known that it wasn't for you all to take action on.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. Apologies. Yep. Got it. Thanks.
So with that, it was a full evening tonight, an important conversation. This brings us to the conclusion of the agenda for this evening. So if there is no objection, the meeting will be adjourned, and thank you everyone, both administration for your work and the community for your interest. Thank you and good night.
Thanks guys, bye.